Broadcasting live from the blood-stained floors of the world's most dangerous martial arts dojos to the pages of the world's deadliest comic books ever made. This is the world's deadliest podcast.
Today we have Eric Moss with us on the podcast. The book is called Jim Cornette Presents Behind the Curtain, Real Pro Wrestling Stories. This is a graphic novel, and it covers a number of real, actual stories from pro wrestling that happened throughout history, primarily covering the time period in which the kayfabe, the knowledge of what was worked and what was real, was still very much a mystery and not well known to the public at all. And because of that, there's a lot of really fascinating stories that you'll learn about in this book. So Eric, you know what I think would be cool is if you just kind of told us a little bit about how this came to be, how you came to publishing this book and how you came to work with Jim Cornette and put this whole project together.
Yeah, sure. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys. So I work at IDW Publishing. I do business development and licensing, and I've been here almost 3 years. When I came on board, there's a lot of brainstorming, a lot of market research, analytics, and we kind of come up with what deals I should be going after, whether they be a large entertainment corporation license. We do comics for Ninja Turtles and Transformers and Star Trek, etc. Or whether we want to have some creator-owned deals where we go in 50-50 with the creator and have them kind of drive the whole project, and we just publish it. And then there's in between where, maybe we can work with some personalities and leverage their huge fan base and just come up with some interesting topics to cover, whether they be through comics or, straight to graphic novel or both, or, for that matter, just collecting old material, reprinting, etc. So one of the ideas that I had, because really, obviously I'm diving into my expertise in certain areas, or, how I am just, big fan of certain things, whether it be music or movies or, comics or anything. One of the things that I have a passion for is old school pro wrestling. I don't really follow the current product. But when, I have a long commute and I'm listening to audiobooks and podcasts and everything, Jim Cornette's podcast came up and, gave it a try. I remembered him from back in the, those glory days of the 80s. And he was just captivating. I mean, the guy is, he's the voice of the people. He's preaching to people like me that really love that old school feel. He's this, totally outspoken, totally funny. He's like a left-wing redneck, which is very, very unique. So anyway, I thought if anyone would be able to tell certain stories in comic book format about old wrestling, old time stories of back when kayfabe existed, and everyone suspended disbelief, and I had read some of his articles and heard the stories on his podcast, so I reached out to him, and we started this dialogue, and I guess maybe my suggested directions that a book could be taken in was received well, because he pretty much said, all of this stuff that you're mentioning, I've either talked about or written articles about or would like to write articles about. So you're pretty much, I guess I lucked out, and we both were thinking the same kind of thing. The next stage that was maybe a little bit of the uphill climb was selling it to the internal parties here, the editorial staff, publisher at the time, on the idea, and that it would be in demand, that there would be a crowd for this. And so that is actually why we took it to Kickstarter. The idea that there would be enough of a fan base interest in this was unproven. And so really with something like Kickstarter, we didn't really view it as a crowdfunding mechanism. We viewed it as a pre-ordering mechanism. So if the pre-orders looked good enough, then I would be proven right, and we can go on it and cover all the costs, and we'd have a great product, and then we can do other things with it once it was done. We could take it to the mass market, and etc. So that's what we did. We got it going on Kickstarter. We had Jim record a promotional video for it, which came out great. That definitely helped. And then it was the idea of, all right, who are we going to have draw the thing and to write it? And we had done an Andre the Giant biographical graphic novel a few years prior, and it did really well. But the arrangement with the co-publisher had expired by that time. So I wasn't sure exactly if that was all, in the clear. But yeah, I spoke to the author, Brandon Easton, the artist, Dennis Nedry. They were both down. Like, Brandon went nuts when he heard about the idea. Like, I was at a convention with him, and I mentioned, just the first thing I said was Jim Cornette graphic novel, and his eyes just like bugged out, and he's like, I've been dying to write something like this, because he's a wrestling guy. Even with the current product, he still goes to all the events. So yeah, it was all the pieces just kind of fell into place. Kickstarter did very, very well. We had it at like a $25,000 goal. It ended up at almost 70. Wow. Yeah, so
that's
so
great.
like, all those add-ons and backer additional things that they could buy. All those things had to be facilitated. We had Jim, like recording stuff for backers and having phone conversations and signing a whole bunch of stuff, obviously. So yeah,
that's cool. So
That's amazing.
So basically,
Eric, this is Jake. So I got to say a couple things here, okay, about this product that you are involved with. First of all, anybody listening, go check out. It's IDW Publishing, right? Like, you got an Instagram, Twitter, all that kind of stuff, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Okay, IDW Publishing. Now, okay, when we were first talking, you messaged me on Facebook, you sent me the digital copy, and then I got actually a hard copy. This is amazing. It's like signed inside. Like, there's a plate with the cartoon and has like this is like really, really cool. And the art is amazing. Okay, so here's my thing. I'm like a total book nerd. I'm 100% bibliophile. I have so many fucking books. My wife bought me a Kindle in hopes that I'd stop buying books, and that didn't happen. I have a collection of wrestling books that are probably worth maybe $20,000 or $30,000 because they're all from like 200 years ago and newer. But anyway, so I'm like a book nerd. I'm also a crazy graphic novel comic book person. That's why Sam and I partner up on this podcast, in fact, because it's all about pro wrestling and comic books, which this is exactly perfect for this book. But even deeper than all of this, Sam and I are experts in the Billy Robinson style of professional wrestling, which is actually kicking people's fucking ass. I mean, it works in MMA, it works in grappling, and it works in pro wrestling. I mean, it's like an amazing method. And Sam and I were very lucky to be privy to Billy's knowledge and having him yell at us and everything else for however many years. And because of that, I ended up, stumbling onto Jim Cornette because people kept sending me these videos on YouTube of Jim Cornette, and he just loves Billy Robinson. So I started really looking into Jim, and he is like, man, I mean, so Jim is just like Sam and I, totally thinks Billy's the greatest wrestler ever.
Yeah.
But man, you nailed it, man. He is funnier than hell. He's probably the best announced guy. And to be honest with you, like, because I do watch a lot of the different products from MMA to WWE, all that shit, just for business. Mm-hmm. And the new NWA Power that he is on, I personally think that is the best product out there. Of all these crazy competing organizations with throwing money left and right, they're doing it right. I mean, it's really amazing. And what I really like about this book, like the first story in here is about Sputnik Monroe, and you actually mentioned Billy Wicks, who was like a personal friend of mine. He recently passed away a couple years ago, but I mean, this is fantastic. And then the actual person that got me into professional wrestling back in the mid-90s was Andy Kaufman. And you have a whole Andy Kaufman story. And this is truly the best book. You understand. I just love this book.
Even in this book, okay, it goes over there's a section going over the Montreal screw job, with Bret the Hitman Hart. Everybody knows about that story. But they give the history about Ed the Strangler Lewis. So even Ed the Strangler Lewis is in this book, it's really cool to see these legit old school stories of these pro wrestlers. There's even Antonio Roca's in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which me and Jake actually even did a podcast on him not too long ago, because there's a 1960s Superman that Antonio Roca makes an appearance in.
Came on the cover with Superman.
Yep. And
totally.
Yeah, so it's cool, but this one's cool because and that one it's kind of funny because in that Superman, Antonio wrestles a giant underwater octopus and pins it. Which you'd never be able to do, but it's. I
mean, that's a little too much suspension of belief. To wrestle an octopus.
Well, that was during the area of the kayfabe, So they're building, they're protecting the business, but in this comic book, you get the real story about how Antonio got brutalized in the ring, and the fans just went crazy and started like rioting and stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, it all comes full circle, because in the video, the promotional video that Jim did, that's was featured on the Kickstarter page. We shot it in his. Well, I wasn't there, but they shot it in his. What does he call it? His. It's like
he's got a room with his collection.
Yeah, it's like his whole collection. He's in there. He's got stacks and stacks of magazines and comics, and the two that he pulls out for the part where he talks about how much of a comic book nerd he is. One of them is the Rocca Superman issue. Like, he's got the original in the plastic and everything. So he's right there with you. He's a historian, and he knows the real deal. He knows the catch as catch can. He knows he knows how Gotch and all those folks, and just kind of they were the real deal back in the day, and they can kind of control who gets the title if by force if necessary, like it was mentioned in the book with Strangler Lewis. He basically took the title back, and he told the guy, we could do this the easy way or the hard way,
Right. Yeah, it's really. I mean, it's really well done. Dennis, you said, is the artist, right? And Jordy, how do you say Jordy's last name?
Jordy Esquine. He's overseas as well. Dennis is Italian, so there would always be kind of the time delay in getting samples from him, but
But the art, their art, I mean, the drawings and the colorings are so complimentary, because I love the way the wrestlers are drawn. They're kind of superhero-ish. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I would say what I like about them, they're really well caricatured. So, everything's, it's caricatured in a way that he's taken the main features of those wrestlers and pushing them, exaggerating them, which kind of I think it's great, because it brings it to life and makes it more interesting to look at than if you're looking at something that's just like a standard like Marvel or DC house style comic. This one's a lot more interesting because it's different. And if he would have drawn all these wrestlers that way, I actually don't think the book would have worked as effectively, to be honest.
Yeah. No, he totally he worked with the material that we gave him, and we gave a lot of suggestions. But yeah, he knocked it out of the park with a lot of their likenesses. One thing that I did, which maybe it got a little tiresome to folks like Jim or Brandon, who had to read all my emails, but going back a step, this whole thing, like the project itself, was entirely it was something I came up with that I presented to Jim, and he said, yeah, I've got these stories, I could tell them. I presented it to Brandon, he said, I could write that. Presenting it to Dennis, he said, send me a whole bunch of stuff and I'll come up with some good, kind of depictions of these characters. So what I did is I dove completely in, I'm sure, you guys haven't, all the thousands of books and comics and everything, and with the internet being the way you can find anything these days. For months, I guess, I completely dove into the historical accuracy of everything. So I found as many pictures as I could of the arenas, of the wrestlers. I mean, everything down to the last detail. I wanted to make sure that the trunk colors were the right color on all these guys,
Wow.
And so there were a lot of edits, a lot of back and forth, where I would get Jim's take on things and make sure that we were representing it the right way, and would have Dennis make those changes. In a couple of cases, at the very last second, we just had the colorist change a few things, and because they were, Dennis was pretty much done at that point. But yeah, I was very, like, Jim thought it was hilarious how to what extent I was going to make sure that things were represented accurately. There's still one or two things like I can nitpick about, like, we could have totally, changed this or that. But for the most part, I'm really happy with the way that everything was portrayed in here. And yeah, the art, it shows these guys in their best way. It's pretty cool.
Well, it's cool too because you've got this like Corny's glossary of the glossary of pro wrestling terms. You've got Time Machine Wrestling Alliance, which is cool because then I like there's all these cool cards that the fights you have slated here: Amateur Rules, Fatal 4-Way, Last Man Undefeated wins gold medal, Vern Gagne versus Danny Hodge versus Carl Gotch versus Kurt Angle. I mean, it's just so cool. This is just a great book. So if people want to buy it, is Amazon the best thing, or should they go to idwpublishing.com? What's the best way for people to get their hands on it?
Any of the above. Yeah, Amazon seems to be the place of choice, obviously. One thing that was kind of cool, maybe because we were sending so many people there, I guess before it even came out, it reached #1 on the wrestling books chart on Amazon. So the pre-orders alone made it, put it to the top, and it was like that for a few weeks. I think now it's still somewhere towards the top, but it's not #1 anymore. But yeah, just seeing our book next to Jim Ross's biography, and just stuff like that, it's like, wow, it's actually resonated with quite a few people. So it's doing really well. We gave Jim some exclusives to put onto his website and sell, and to personalize himself after the Kickstarter folks got taken care of. Which, by the way, if we're talking timing, that was probably the only frustrating part. Was the Kickstarter took place early 18. What was it, March, April, May, something like that, of 18. And we had expected to have the book done in October of last year. We had, mapped it out. We said, here are all the spots we need to hit. For whatever reason, delays here and there, just finding openings in Dennis Medry's schedule, and then, and then the holidays happen, and then it gets pushed into early 19. So really, the book wasn't done, until a good 4 or 5 months after it was supposed to have already gone out. So, and then we got to schedule it, get it into the hands of our distributor, Random House. So really, the best we could possibly pull off was a summer 19 release, and we just caught the tail end of it. It came out in August, but yeah, it would have been cool if we could get it out sooner to all those Kickstarter backers. So it was just a lot of apologizing and holding folks off that were getting a little impatient. But once we got them taken care of, then we knew we could concentrate on the mass market and start getting it up on Amazon. And that's when we started seeing the numbers come in for the pre-orders. And we said, "Oh my God, I guess we're onto something."
Yeah, that is exciting. So everybody that backed the Kickstarter has been taken care of at this point, though. Everything's been delivered, and that's done.
Yeah. And obviously the high money backers were the ones we really wanted to take care of. So we really, we tried to sweeten things up for them. One thing that was really cool, I don't know if you knew about this, but there were a handful of backers that chose to be drawn into the book. So these are kind of like Easter eggs in there for the people that, the handful of people that know to look out for themselves. They sent pictures. I sent them to Dennis. He drew them into whatever scene that they had. Basically, there were 3 levels. There was like background, and then there was like a spotlighted background, and then there was a featured part with like maybe a line that they would get to speak. So yeah, the 3 biggest of the featured characters were one was the guy that crashes Ric Flair's plane, and then who was another? Oh, the guy that gets choked by the sheep.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a backer. And then the other one, he was supposed to be the other one. Originally, we had contemplated a bigger part for the black attorney that represented Sputnik Monroe, but the guy was not black, and he said, "Let's find you a different part." And okay, all right. So we drew him in as the referee in the Lawler Kaufman match.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that's rad. I mean, I'll tell you, like project management. That the challenge is project management is hard. It's as you experience, like sometimes it ends up. Especially with people with different schedules and whatnot. But this is such a super professional, amazing job. So that kind of begs the question: Are you guys doing number 2? Is that too fresh?
Well, the ideas are already there if we need to go there, but it's just a matter of just kind of making it work for all parties, and just figuring it out in the publishing schedule, and if it's possible. So it's TBD. We will leave it at that. I don't really. There's no plan for it, but that could all change at any point. So we'll see.
It looks amazing, and if it was profitable, man, I'm telling you that there's got to be a market for this because this is really, really great book. Again, it's Jim Cornette presents Behind the Curtain: Real Pro Wrestling Stories. So again, if you go to Amazon, it's Jim Cornette presents Behind the Curtain: Real Pro Wrestling Stories. This is just amazing.
Yeah, what I like about this comic too, I think this is a good step in a good direction for comic books because it's not a superhero book. It's not like a crossover between a bunch of different things. It's not like you get part of a story and then you got to buy the next 15 issues to complete the story across the number of titles. This is a complete book. But anyway, why don't you tell us, Eric, when did you start watching professional wrestling, and what was it about pro wrestling that captivated you? Were you watch it when you were a young kid, or was it something you came across later on?
Yeah, I'd say it was I'm dating myself, but I think it was the early 80s to the mid 80s is when I was into it, and it was just the human drama, It was I guess it was before I discovered comics. Now that I think about it, I think comics replaced wrestling because that probably happened like mid '80s is when I discovered comics. So yeah, but yeah, anything human drama with these guys were like superheroes, and I was I grew up on Long Island, and so obviously we had the WWF, but if you tried hard enough on the UHF channels or whatever it was, I could get a Mid-South broadcast. And,
nice.
And then I think at some point ESPN started to cover the Dallas World Class, and then I think AWA was always on like ESPN as well. So yeah, I just reading the magazines and watching the shows, I was completely immersed in it. I'd say for about a 2-year span in the early to mid '80s. And I just always remember that as like, those were formative years when you're older and you start having kids, you start to revisit certain things that were you saw in this wondrous light, and you want to kind of be a kid again, I guess, with your kids. So I find myself, I'm very nostalgic lately. I like to rediscover things that I was into around the same time that my 7-year-old is now into certain things, so we can experience them together. So yeah, I'd say the timing was right for me to come across Cornette's podcast, because it's just good stuff. It made me feel those same feelings that that I felt when I was young, when I was a little kid, and then also just reading books about the behind the scenes doings, I guess, really kind of reintroduced me. It kind of you're seeing things from a different angle, and you're fascinated by how they pulled these things off. You didn't know at the time how what the real story was behind the scenes. But now, ever since the cat's out of the bag, as of the early '90s, with McMahon not paying the athletic commission the fees and letting them all know that it was a predetermined contest, and then the steroid trials and all these things that basically, like Cornette says, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's like it's out of the bag. Might as well start doing the exposés and all the books and everything. So really, just reading all those books of whatever wrestler's story was, those were definitely bringing me back to that era. But I had never seen anything represented in here's the real story in a graphic novel format. All of those things were either as interviews on video or as prose novels, So to have it, in a comic book format. I know there's been wrestling in comics, which is what you guys, that's your expertise. I caught some of your previous work, and you guys cover it in really impressive detail. So you know that it's ripe. It's just there haven't been these kind of stories told in comic book form. So that was pretty much, that was what brought me back to that era and that feeling that I felt was, needed to be represented in comics.
I think that's cool. Yeah, I remember, Jake and I spent a lot of time around Billy Robinson, and the number of stories that guy had about all the years he was in the business is just it was mind blowing. And all the time I'm thinking, man, these are some amazing stories. Somebody should tell them. And Jake helped tell them. He ghost wrote Billy Robinson's biography.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that out. It's the physical chess one, right?
Yeah.
I want to read that. Jake, I have read Say Uncle. That is in my shelf. That's good stuff.
I was wondering how you thought to contact us. So I'm guessing maybe that had something to do with it.
That had something. Definitely. I'm a voracious reader, and just going back to, I guess, anything combat sports related. So really, all the MMA, that I watch and read about, a lot of it was. It became really interesting to me in the late 90s when folks like Sakuraba came along and were kind of, dispelling a lot of myths and just kind of showing how real kind of submission wrestling could work against a jiu-jitsu guy, etc. So really, once I started to learn more about the history and how he learned from Billy Robinson, and there's this thing called catch wrestling, and it's fascinating to me. So I devoured any type of book on the early days of MMA, how jiu-jitsu came into prominence. A lot of stuff about the Gracies, and it's fascinating. And then once you hear about how Billy Robinson had trained a lot of the guys around that era and even after, like Josh Cornette, etc. I mean, it's really fascinating how that is, and his style goes back way before him to the Wigan and the catch guys, and it's just there's so much to read. I feel like I've just scratched the surface, but yeah, I'm always reading stuff about that. So obviously your book came on my radar. There's a few others I still have to read, but yeah, it's all fascinating, and I hope that that portion of the Cornette book did it justice and showed that it is a real part of the behind the scenes of something that is predetermined in pro wrestling, that there were real people in there that could really mess you up.
Well, it was really cool because I was really pretty good friends with an old timer. He's mentioned in your book, Billy Wicks, during the first story about Sputnik Monroe. And it was so neat to just read the story, how you guys laid it out. Because, I remember him telling me, what a great guy Sputnik was, and that he was his friend. And, because Billy Wicks was I think he was a deputy sheriff. Mm-hmm. So he was having to, he was on the front lines of all that segregation shit too down there, and really wanted to help get Sputnik over to help make those and he would tell me those crazy stories. And so to see that treated in your book was really, really cool. And again, the whole Andy Kaufman thing was pivotal for me in terms of I was really never into pro wrestling. I went to shows when I was a kid, all that kind of stuff, but it was never my thing. I tended to comic books a lot more. And anyway, I was working in a video store in the mid 90s, and I was in San Francisco, poor as hell, working minimum wage jobs. Anyway, one was in a used bookstore and the other one was in a video store. And one of my buddies was like, "Man, you've got to watch this." And he handed me, I'm From Hollywood, and then My Breakfast with Blassie, which were the two releases Andy Kaufman did about his pro wrestling stuff. And from then on, I was totally hooked on how pro wrestling can be such a powerful medium for telling stories and for affecting people's lives and emotionally and stuff. And this book, I really just can't speak highly enough, but it's really, really, really cool. The art is cool, the stories, the writing. And so if this was a movie, you would basically be like the producer or director, because you worked on making the money happen and then coordinating everybody and making sure the right look was there and all that kind of stuff.
And he also came up with the idea and everything.
Yeah. I guess the question came up once we were finishing it up, what is my credit? Because I'm not an editor. I do the business development here. But the fact is, I was so involved in this that, we had to decide, do we do just, story consultant or creative director or just something like that? And then a friend of mine that's an editor here said, just go with editor. That's what you've been for this entire project, and that would make the most sense. And for similar projects that he had done in the past where it was his vision the entire time as well, he said, I always just went with editor. That's the way to go. So I got my first editor credit. Yeah.
That's fantastic, man.
So,
and by the way, the backers weren't the only ones that got drawn in the book. I had to do it. I put myself into one panel.
Oh no, where are you?
Let's see. It's the one of the first panels where Kaufman is yelling at Lawler, and he's got Lance Russell is interviewing him. He's got the microphone in his face, and there's a guy over his shoulder, basically in between Lance Russell and Andy Kaufman. And,
that's hilarious! Isn't that your Skype picture?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. I had to do it. And
Oh, that's hilarious.
That's awesome.
How rad is that?
So cool. Huh. Well, for the people that maybe are more into that listen to our podcast are more into just comic books or the real wrestling, just to fill you in a little bit more on what the stories in this book are about is there is a time in wrestling before now when whether a match was real or worked was unknown to the public. And that's what they call keeping the secret. They call the kayfabe. And what happened was throughout history is wrestlers would go to a lot of extremes, like unbelievable extremes, in order to keep these secrets and not let people know what was really going on. And this book goes into a lot. It goes into all these different stories about a number of different wrestlers and like the really crazy stuff they did so that nobody would know what was actually going on. And I think it works really effectively. I've learned there were things in this comic book that I didn't know, that I wasn't aware of. Even some of the stuff about Andy Kaufman, I wasn't totally sure when that was real and when that was not real, when it was.
Well, that's exactly the cool thing, right? It's like Eric was saying, there was this time in the 80s when Vince broke kayfabe and said it's all entertainment and yada, yada, yada. And the cool thing about Andy Kaufman is even though everybody knew it was fake, Andy got everybody to believe, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't figure it out if it was real or not. And that was the greatest fucking thing ever, to be able to do that in the face of everybody. Now the main guy at the top with the biggest company is saying it's fake. And this comedian performance artist has everybody else like, is this real? Are they really like angry at each other? That's the greatest thing in the world to me.
Totally. And when you kind of know, but you don't have that confirmation, it's just, it's so cool that they kept that secret for so long. I think, I could be mistaken, but I think it wasn't until the movie in the late 90s with Jim Carrey that they...
Yeah, that it was finally totally... When Jerry Lawler was the one who finally... Because he kept that secret all those years.
Yeah, and so there's that scene they filmed where they're like, backstage and they're huddled together, talking and friendly. Yeah, so cool. I love stuff like that where it just stays believable. I was going to give another example of that, but I lost it. Yeah. So I mean,
while you're thinking of that, I'm gonna make a suggestion because I'm the odd man out. Both of you guys are in San Diego. I'd suggest you got to get over to Sam's gym and get a workout in. You can feel some of the Billy Robinson stuff.
Sure. Or the next time Jake comes down here a couple times a year. The next time Jake comes
there
down,
we go.
That could be in order. Although these old bones, I don't know if they would be cooperating too much. But yeah, that is.
Listen, Eric. I'm 46 and almost died. You're going to be fine. Trust me. I'm not excited still, but we'll get you. You could just come and watch. It'll be fun.
I would love to hang out, and if there's a workout involved, then you've won. You've gotten me to get off my butt. But at the very least, we gotta hook up.
Yeah, just come hang out. That'd be cool, for sure.
Awesome. Well, so again, maybe tell people that are listening where like the best places. I mean, obviously Amazon's good, but you guys have other products or projects over at IDW, I'm guessing.
You could go to our website. You could go to Amazon. Go to Barnes & Noble. As far as the digital readers go, the biggest fish in the pond is Comixology, and you can find all of our stuff there. And this is getting some good attention on Comixology. I see the monthly numbers, and it's encouraging. So there's pretty much any digital platform that has comics. I do the business deals for us, so I can see where all of our content goes. If there's a digital platform that has comics, we're on it. and the Cornette book should be on there. If it isn't, I'd say for some of the ones that are subscription based, it takes a little while to get on there, so just give it some time. But anything that's kind of day and date that has the stuff, this book should be on there along with all of our other top sellers. I'd say the stuff lately that we do that is getting the most attention is we're closing in on issue number 100 of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So that's
oh wow.
Yeah, so that's probably our biggest deal lately. Transformers, we relaunched with a new Transformers universe. We kind of killed off the entire prior universe last year. What else? Star Trek. I got an airplane flying over now.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, as long as you're talking.
I'm trying to do the mute unmute thing. But yeah, Star Trek. We do all those. Any TV series. We got Discovery. We got the Picard one coming up. What are some other good ones? Something that I don't know if you guys were into back in the 80s, but G.I. Joe. We are the home.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're the home of G.I. Joe comics, and the original writer, Larry Hama, is still doing it. We're up to issue 267 right now. So the first 150 something were Marvel, and then we picked it up from 155 on.
Wow,
it's still going, and it's still good. I mean, we got these pretty good artists on it right now that they do this pretty interesting take. There's a new Snake Eyes. It's actually two new Snake Eyes. The previous one was killed, but through the magic of comics, his memories were implanted into a lady ninja, and she's the new Snake Eyes.
Oh wow!
Cool. But yeah, that's going to be cool when the Snake Eyes movie comes out next year, and we got a lot of products hopefully to support it. So yeah, G.I. Joe. If you guys want to catch up on that, I might have to bring some goodies with me next time.
Oh yeah, dude! I used to love G.I. Joe, man. That was like right in my wheelhouse when I was like a little kid, man. Like I was the prime demographic for all those the comic books, the serials. Man, weren't we talking about like the fucking ridiculous amount of like they had like the refrigerator Perry as a fucking G.I. Joe. They had Sergeant
Slaughter.
Yeah, the fridge. Who was wasn't he like a football player?
Yeah, the refrigerator.
Yeah, they made an action figure out of him.
Like, what the fuck's that guy gonna do in awards?
I don't know, but it was kind of funny. But I think there was a Mr. T. Maybe it wasn't G.I. Joe, or not a Mr. T. I don't remember. But no, my favorite was always I always liked Destro.
Yeah,
because it's like he has that head that's like, I don't know what his head's made out of. What is his head made out of, actually? It's like chrome or metal or something?
I might just have to bring, I think we had an issue lately that I of course, just loving the original 80s stuff. Every once in a while we kind of throw it back and we harken to some classic storylines from the 80s. We had an issue, I think it was like 254 or whatever, where it tells some origin and, how he and Baroness knew each other and they were romantically involved, and how before he got his mask, but then he got horrifically injured on his face. So I think he's got a real face under that thing.
Oh, it's a real face.
Just kind of mangled a little.
Yeah, I'll have to go into the lore. Because I remember I was watching the cartoon as a kid, and he had like these missiles that would pop up out of his wrists. Little tiny ones, and he would shoot them at the Joes, and they're like, running through the base and stuff. And I was like, wow, that's so awesome.
Dude, I was watching this one. I saw this on a conspiracy page, and it was like how like Cobra was going to take over the world through the banking system, and it was basically like totally how like the Federal Reserve System works.
Oh
and shit.
yeah,
I've
seen that one.
Amazing writing, dude. And crazy subversive in a way too. Like back in the '80s on like a kid show.
Yeah, that one was gnarly. It was like Cobra was able to make all the money disappear. That one was really intense, man. For a kid's cartoon too, that was pretty insane.
There have been some storylines. There's actually, so we do G.I. Joe Real American Hero. That's the one that is up to number 267 right now. So that's like the original, the classic. But then we do some like some limited series kind of offshoot, in its own world kind of stuff. And one that we did a few years ago was just called Cobra, and then it was like G.I. Joe Cobra and just other other titles that were tied into it. But it was all collected in this I guess we bound it up into this hardcover, and it's called Cobra: The Last Laugh. And before I even started working here, that was one of my favorite things that IDW ever did. It was just so well written. It sometimes when you get a licensed comic, you're using a writer who specializes in catering to the licensor and getting the stories through, and maybe staying in a safe zone, if that makes sense, where you're not really stretching things or making people die, or you really kind of want to play with the toys and then put them back where you found them.
Yeah.
But with this one, with Cobra: The Last Laugh, it was freaking outrageous. It was incredible. Like, it was so well written. It was like this international espionage plot, and it anything goes. People dying, and it is it's one that I might have to introduce you guys to. But that is the goods. That and a few others were pretty much reasons for me, popping in to IDW to see if they needed a biz dev guy, and timing worked out. But yeah, the Cobra story,
Cobra: The Last Laugh.
Cobra: The Last Laugh.
I'll definitely look that one up then. That sounds
great. There was another one that IDW did before I started here, but I read it and I was blown away. And it's actually a Godzilla comic. We do Godzilla here. And it's called The Half-Century War, Godzilla, The Half-Century War. And it is, if they were to make a movie, I guess with pretty much every Godzilla monster against him, but also tying in some international kind of corrupted government officials using the monsters, like manipulating them so that they would invade their enemy territory.
Yeah, like they're WMDs or something.
Yeah, totally. It's like that, and it's so well written and so well drawn. It's a single creator named James Stokoe, and he does this incredibly detailed art, and he's a writer as well. And it blew me away. So really, with G.I. Joe, with Godzilla, with some of these stories that I read before I even started here, I was all about some of the products that we were putting out. And then, ever since I started here, it's not letting up. It's a lot of good stuff still.
That's amazing.
That's crazy. Well, I'm just stoked you were able to get this project done, because it's amazing. I mean, given like you guys carry some very heavy IP, and to be able to sneak this in there is like amazing. It's a great book.
Totally. Nice. And we also have an entertainment division, and so that's for a lot of our creator-owned stuff. And so what you're going to start seeing next year, I think it was either late this year or early next year, you're going to start seeing some of the books that we've released coming to streaming networks. We've had our entertainment division has produced, I think, 4 shows that are one that's currently on air called Wynonna Earp. It's Wyatt Earp's great granddaughter. But the others that, one of probably our most well-known creator-owned title is called Lock and Key. And that got picked up by Netflix, and it's going to be sometime early in 2020 that's going to be on. And I got high hopes for that one, because anything that's dark, just kind of a dark, mysterious, horror-ish kind of vibe, whether it be House on Haunted Hill or Castle Rock, anything Stephen King. I mean, these are just, that's right up my alley. And so we're hoping Lock and Key is going to be in that vein with the same kind of quality. So there's that. We have this other one called V-Wars. We have the title called October Faction, and some others. So really, we got licensed books, we got create our own books, and we have shows now too. So it's cool. You start seeing IDW popping up in new places next year.
Yeah,
but
I'll tell you.
The fact that I was able to get this book approved and through the system was pretty cool. Took a lot of work, but it's a nice feather in the cap.
I've absolutely loved the Walt Simonson Ragnarok books.
Oh, nice.
Those ones are. I think that's some of Walter Simonson's greatest illustrative work of all time. I mean, those books are incredible. And I'm a huge fan of old Norse mythology and Vikings and everything. In fact, Jake and I we were just visited the Jorvik Center in York, which is like a historical Viking center, while we're over there in the UK coaching catch wrestling and such. And man, that Walt Simonson Ragnarok stuff is incredible. So if people don't know about that, if you like real Norse mythology, that is definitely a book to check out.
Yeah, he just actually relaunched with a new series. I think it's like Ragnarok Volume 2, but he's up to issue number 2 now. The art in that is pretty spectacular. I mean, he's still got it. He comes to all of our conventions. We do signings with him, and I met him a few times. And you like to hear the insider stories when you're in the business about who are the people to try to work with, who's the real deal, and who the pretenders are. Yeah, and everybody to a person has the same exact story to tell about Walt Simonson. They all say he's the nicest guy in comics. He, everything he does at all the conventions. I mean, I think he said, I think he was like being interviewed, and he said, "Yeah, I'm here to just meet people and to do sketches for them for free." Like he's like, all the people that are making money doing it, more power. God bless them. He's like, that's not what I do at these conventions. I'm just here to talk to friends and to do some sketches. And it's entirely just out of the goodness in his heart, Wow. Pretty cool. Yeah. His stuff for Ragnarok is ridiculously detailed and awesome. Like that first issue with the double page spread of like the dragon, the Midgard serpent. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's insane. If you haven't seen it, anybody listening, if you haven't seen it, you got to go look at it. Even just go onto Amazon and just look at the free 5-page preview or whatever and check it out, and your mind will be blown. And it's really well researched. I mean, that guy has an incredible knowledge. I mean, he knows a lot about Norse mythology, stuff I had no clue of.
Yeah, totally.
Well, Eric, I really appreciate you spending so much time with us, man. Is there any other area that we should cover? Again, the name of the book is Jim Cornette Presents Behind the Curtain, Real Pro Wrestling Stories. Again, you said it's at Comics Mixology. It's at Amazon. It's at IDWpublishing.com. Did we miss anything?
No. Just give it a try. While you're at it, check out some of the other IDW books. We got some, anything that's nonfiction based that is really well done is really the stuff that's resonating for us. We have one that it's a biographical graphic novel by George Takei about his time in the Japanese internment camps that just came out. So that's doing really well. We have one that's called March, which is Congressman John Lewis and his kind of civil rights, struggle, all of those years. There's 3 volumes of that. These are our top sellers. These are the ones that, when you go in the bookstore, it's probably the first one that you might come across by us, because those 2 actually are on an imprint of ours called Top Shelf, but it's all IDW. But yeah, hopefully, this Cornette book can keep doing what it's doing and keep resonating well with his fan base, and even like he says, even for the people that hate him. He's like, he gets a kick out of sometimes how people call into his podcast or write him or whatever, and they'll just straight up say like, I am not your fan. I don't like reviews. But
Yeah.
but here they are listening. You know, they're a customer as well, or you know.
Well, no business has figured out how to turn haters into cash than pro wrestling, except maybe politics.
Totally. There was right around the release of this. I want to say in late August. Jim had said some controversial things, and he was playing up his character and everything, and he trended on Twitter. And he was like number 16 on Twitter as a trending Jim Cornette. And he like posted that on his Twitter feed and everything. And I'd like to think that he did it as he knew what he was doing, man. Hey, people are gonna look you up and they're gonna want to see what products you got. And it maybe was no coincidence, the timing, that it was right when this book had come out. Get some extra eyeballs on your stuff, and it worked. I mean,
well, he's certainly a master of promotion, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was I going to say? So yeah, that's about it. And thanks everyone who's listening who has read it or is considering reading it, because there was a lot of care put into it, and of course, sending it to you guys was a very good idea, because I can recognize the real deal when I see it. So, but you guys keep up the good work as well.
Thanks, Eric.
If you want to follow me, Sam Crescent, on Instagram, you can find me at World's Deadliest Art. If you'd like to follow me on YouTube, you can find me at youtube.com/Sam Crescent, spelled with a K, Kressin. To follow Jake, check out Scientific Wrestling. Go to scientificwrestling.com to check out all the latest catch wrestling camps, workshops, and training. Don't forget to check out my comic book, Strength Monsters, at strengthmonsters.com. You can download the first issue there for free. It's about two professional wrestlers who have to take on a giant anthropomorphic burrito who has waged war on all the local taco shops in their community. It's filled with over 32 pages of pro wrestling, catch wrestling madness. The music on this podcast is brought to you by Incompetech.com. INCOMPETECH, Incompetech.com. You can go there and find all kinds of cool royalty-free music and all types of other things you can use for whatever projects you might be working on. And as always, stay tuned to this channel, as we will have another World's Deadliest podcast coming up real soon.